Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Here today, I get to insult Adam Silver, one of my least liked sports figures right now. I think, really for the past decade, I've always felt Adam Silver was a bit of a dork. Honestly, I really always thought he was a bit of a dork. Honestly, I think Adam Silver, I think for so long he had this good rep because, remember, a lot of Adam Silver's start of his tenure as commissioner of the NBA was taken over for David Stern. The league was in a pretty healthy place. I know they came out of that work stoppage and kind of things. They didn't really suffer too badly from that. And, he then had the Donald Sterling thing, which he banned Donald Sterling, which, everyone applauded. Granted, I do think it's a little funny that everyone applauded it. And yet, I might mess with my shirt here. Everyone applauded it. And yet, when we really think about it, Donald Sterling's punishment for being a racist was $2 billion. Wow. I mean, honestly, I wish I could get exposed for some things and be given $2 billion. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, I think, Adam Silver really thought he took a big stand right there. And it's like, okay, I mean, sure. Then I think Adam Silver really earned a lot of his rep from sports media. I think he got a lot of that kind of rep from sports media as the best commissioner in all of pro sports. Every sport wish they had a commissioner as good as Adam Silver, and a lot of that I think stemmed from the anthem protests in the NFL. Now, what did Adam Silver do? Um, Honestly, nothing. And he kind of just did the opposite of whatever the NFL was doing. The NFL was like just tripping over their own dicks during that whole controversy. Um, and then, I think Adam Silver, again, I think again, he got all this unearned rep, in my opinion. And I've never liked it. I always felt the guy was just a bit of a dork. And my biggest issue with Adam Silver is at times he doesn't seem like he's the commissioner of the NBA, right? At times, Adam Silver feels like he is the commissioner of the Players Association or something, right? Like, I think Adam Silver misunderstands what his role is. And I feel like at times Adam Silver doesn't have any of his own ideas, doesn't really have original thoughts, kind of just, go. I've always felt he just kind of reads Twitter and kind of just goes with whatever seems to be popping on Twitter among like white NBA podcast guys. And I think that's how we got the play-in tournament. I think that's how we got the mid-season tournament. I think that's how we got lottery reform. I think that's how we got these increased pace of play rules. I think Adam Silver just constantly gaslights himself from guys who are going to say, everything the NBA does is great anyways, right? These are the guys who, like, you can tell I'm not that old. Um, I personally don't find the current brand of NBA basketball all that exciting. I really don't think it's a very good product. I think if you watch a regular season game, it really is just a lot of just 3-point shots, just getting chucked up. Teams are running up and down the court. The pace is so fast. And it makes sense on why guys are injured by the time the playoffs start, right? They're, the amount of possessions per game running up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down the court. No wonder why these guys aren't playing defense in the regular season. I think that's why you've seen in this playoffs, there's been some players exposed. Why? Because they weren't that good anyways. They kind of are pace of play merchants, if you will, right? I think you've seen a lot of that with some of these guys in these playoffs. But there is a quote that came from an article today, from Adam Silver, or not from Adam Silver, excuse me, people who work in the league office who kind of describe Adam Silver here. It's weird. It's to this side of me, but I'm looking this way to read it, so it's kind of weird. But don't worry about that. Only I'm worried about this. You're not. Look, Silver. He begins and ends his day with media briefings, but he also spends plenty of the intervening hours scrolling NBA Twitter, studying complaints and critiques the way a stockbroker monitors movement in the S&P 500. It's an unhealthy habit. Yes, it is. We have a commissioner who likely spends any amount of free time he gets. Now, this guy works in, he does meetings and then has probably a couple hours of free time before he does like another meeting or a briefing or anything like that. So he probably has a decent amount of free time throughout his day. He spends all of that free time obsessively reading tweets. I don't. Do you think Roger Goodell does that? No, I don't think Roger Goodell does. Do you think Rob Manfred does that? Commissioner of Major League Baseball? No, he doesn't do that. You think Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL, does that? No, he probably doesn't do that. Do you think like the commissioner or CEO of like NASCAR does? Actually, that's actually a good comparison for the NBA. I might make that video one day. I might have to remember that actually. I might have to write that down. There is a real comparison here of I think the current state of the NBA and where NASCAR was back in like 2005, 2006. That comparison really hasn't been like drawn by too many people, I've noticed, but I actually do think it's a very good comparison. I'll have to work on that video one day. But this right here, Adam Silver talking about, or not Adam Silver, people talking about Adam Silver, they were finally happy they finally got married and had kids because like, oh, maybe he'll spend less time on Twitter. And it's very clear that probably has not been the case. If he gets any free time away from his kids, he's spending it looking at Twitter. I want to be shocked if he then looks at Reddit, right? This is where some of these insane ideas came from, right? I remember Reddit, NBA Reddit, was pushing the idea of a play-in tournament. Then like a year later, we have a play-in tournament. NBA Reddit, Twitter, some of these white podcast bros, they were pushing the idea of a mid-season tournament. It'd be like some soccer thing. Doesn't work because all the teams are in one league already playing each other. The reason why that works in Europe is because not all of the teams all the big European clubs are in the same league, right? There's different leagues throughout Europe. So that's why it makes sense to have a tournament, to have mid-season tournaments that brings these teams from different leagues into one tournament. That's why that makes sense because they're not all in the same league. That's why that works. It doesn't work in the NBA because they're already in the same. All these teams are going to play each other anyways, and then they're going to have a playoff to determine who's the best. So you don't really need a mid-season tournament. It doesn't determine anything. Well, it gives the players more. The mid-season tournament's stupid, right? Cool. Well, the prize is the players get more money. Who cares if they get more money? These guys are making $50-60 million. Like, well, hey, Giannis made an extra $2 million. I don't give a shit. What makes you think I care if he earns an Adam Silver, right here, guy, right here, right. I can't do this. Terrible. Right here, thinks you care if a player making $60-70 million gets an extra $2 million in a midseason tournament. That is just moronic. And the biggest thing we've seen this year, I think comes back to it, is this lottery reform nonsense from Adam Silver. Where Adam Silver acts as if lottery reform was the biggest, most important thing that needed to be done. And it just wasn't. Like, the idea of tanking, I think we've seen ESPN kind of lay the groundwork for this. I think going back last year where they were just really complaining about tanking. And it's just like, some teams are bad. You know what I mean? Like some teams they're just bad. They suck. The Sacramento Kings aren't tanking. They're bad. Utah Jazz aren't tanking. They're bad. These are bad teams. And yet the solution isn't a lottery, right? The white NBA podcast bros like, what if we have like a tournament and these teams can... What player is going to risk injury for a better draft pick for a team that might cut them or trade them in the offseason? It's moronic. But it's an idea that Adam Silver actually thought was a good idea. I wonder why. Oh, wait, because some white podcast bros on Twitter or on Reddit said so. And this is where the commissioner is getting all of his ideas from. Because I don't think Adam Silver has ever had like an original thought in his head. All of these are bad ideas that don't help the league. These are just gimmicks that cover up the fact that, one, the actual games themselves in the regular season are not very good. Playoff basketball is great, right? Because playoff basketball more resembles basketball, right, at its best. It resembles that more clearly. I almost wonder if the NBA has to move to like a type of like teams play like a 3-game series or something like that, right? Teams just kind of play all their play out. You know what I mean? Like my schedule might end up having to be done like that or something in the future. I mean, there has to be some sort of solution here. The real solution is to probably cut 20 games from the regular season, probably start the season in December. I mean, again, those are the real solutions, but those are tough choices that you would have to make. Adam Silver, I feel like doesn't like making tough choices, right? I mean, you go back to the Donald Sterling thing. That was an easy decision. That was easy. The anthem stuff, that was easy. I think you go back, what was tough? What was tough was the CBA that was negotiated, I believe, before the Warriors lost to the Cavaliers the year before, and there was this big discussion. Well, what's going to happen with the cap? There's all this new TV money coming in. This is kind of where I first figured Adam Silver was a bit of a dope. A little bit before that too, but really, I think Adam Silver is afraid of conflict. Adam Silver is afraid of getting into a spat with either the Players Association or players. He is terrified of looking as if he is running counter to players. And I think Adam Silver has the energy of the cool substitute teacher that you probably don't want subbing for more than like 2 days in a row, right? Because after like those first 2 days, the classroom's just gonna be a mess. If you've ever had a situation where you've had a substitute teacher for like a couple of weeks or a month for, whatever personal reason your teacher could have, it could get really bad because like they're a substitute teacher. That's good for a day. That's good for a day or two. It's not good for long term. You definitely need the stern hand. No pun intended on that one, right? So the big thing, Kevin Durant ends up signing to the Warriors because they had cap room, because instead of smoothing out the cap over a couple years, right? And you have to cap it slowly, gets the new money in. Well, what Adam Silver did was he just kind of folded because the Players Association, LeBron and Chris Paul. Kind of funny, LeBron probably cost himself 2 additional rings by wanting a bigger check, even though he already makes a ton of money from Nike and all these other off-the-court things. But hey, whatever. Get your money. Adam Silver probably could have fought the players on that. But Adam Silver didn't want to risk work stoppage. And Adam Silver probably didn't want to risk looking like a bad guy, right? Adam Silver, when he was the deputy commissioner, I think he was viewed as good cop. And David Stern was viewed as bad cop. And now, granted, I don't think David Stern gave a shit how the players viewed him. I don't think he really cared if, star players didn't like him. I think to him it's like, whatever. You know what I mean? Because of the work I've put in, you are going to be able to create generational wealth. I don't care if you like me, love me, hate me. I think to Dave Stern, you're going to respect me, right? I think that's the difference between Adam Silver and David Stern. David Stern doesn't care. David Stern didn't care, R.I.P., if you liked him. He really didn't. He didn't give a shit. But you were going to respect him if you were in his league. That's how David Stern operates. Adam Silver, also, I think Adam Silver. I think Adam Silver confuses people liking him with respecting him, because you see a lot of the nonsense that I think players pull nowadays. That's not a sign that these people respect, I think, Adam Silver. They don't respect the NBA. They don't respect the privilege that they have. When they put the work in, 100% they put the work in. But again, it comes back to, I think, the comments LeBron made about, in my opinion, again, the cap smoothing stuff. I think that was the worst mistake. I think that was a bad mistake. And so I think that's why we're in the mess we're in now, where I think we overcorrected in the following CBA on making sure we don't allow these super teams, when really all the NBA had to do back then was just fight the players on that, not allow that big spike in cap. Maybe you miss a month of the season, fine, but you get cap smoothing in. KD never joins the Warriors because they would have had to probably gut the team a bit to get KD. It just wouldn't have been a possibility if you had actual cap smoothing. And we're not in this mess where we had to overcorrect on the, super team stuff. I think that's one of the things that I truly think that maybe if you're going to look back at the history of Adam Silver when all is said and done as his time as NBA commissioner, I think that will be the moment I think people will look back and say, that's where it really went wrong for the league, right? You had the comments that LeBron made about, again, I just made a video defending LeBron. I'm gonna kind of bash LeBron a little bit here. Those comments, bitching about, I don't like playing in Memphis. I don't like playing in this city. I don't like playing this or there. You think David Stern would have not like responded in the media kind of in kind? You know what I mean? You don't think he would have? He would have. If anything, David Stern would have got on a call with LeBron or Rich Paul, whoever, and probably told him, shut the fuck up. Who the fuck are you to bash our cities, our franchises, our teams? Talking about, I don't like playing here. I don't give a shit where you like to play. I'll have you playing in Baltimore if I want. Who the fuck are you to do? That's the kind of style David Stern was, right? That's kind of how David Stern operated. He would, people talk about this where they would get a call if they said something, players, agents, people in the media, they would talk about getting calls from David Stern and he would just rip into them. I mean, he would just absolutely rip people a new asshole. He didn't care who you were. He didn't care if you were a player. He didn't care if you were a coach. He didn't care if you were the head of ESPN. He didn't care if you were an owner. He didn't care who you were. If he felt you were running afoul to the league itself, he was going to let you know. He was going to let you hear it. And he was going to make sure you didn't do it again. He was going to make sure you knew your place. Can you imagine Adam Silver doing that? No. Can you imagine Adam Silver calling up Rich Paul after LeBron made those comments about places he doesn't like to be and, he wants the team moved to Nashville and this and that? Can you imagine Adam Silver even raising his voice at like a staffer at the NBA league office? No, you can't. I guarantee you, after those comments, if David Stern was still alive and commissioner, he would have called Rich Paul and he would told him, shut the fuck up. If LeBron wants to be a part of that little expansion team that we're going to do, ownership, he needs to learn his place and just shut the fuck up. That would have been the response they would have got privately. Publicly, he would have been, more, I don't know, he wouldn't have been as extreme. He knew when to really hide that stuff at times. Granted, there is that one really cool Jim Rome clip, when he's like, hey, have you stopped beating your wife yet? Classic David Stern. I mean, that's how he was with publicly when he wanted people to know his displeasure. Can you imagine what he said privately? And, I think Adam Silver confused. I think this is kind of a final point here. I think Adam Silver views the players, the NBA is a players league in a sense, right? I think that there is truth to that. It is, that's kind of the nature of basketball. One player can change the fortunes massively in basketball compared to sports like football and baseball. But I think David Stern understood, as true as that is, these teams are brands. And the last thing you want are the brands of your team, your teams, your brands, essentially, to, I think, appear weak. I don't think you want fan bases to be destitute. I think Adam Silver seems okay with that because, well, we can move it to, if Memphis does feel destitute, we can just move it to Nashville and that'll be really big because Nashville's popping right now. It's like, okay, sure, you move the team to Nashville. What happens when the Grizzlies are still bad in Nashville? I feel like there's no thought process here. We just did this, we're doing this lottery reform. You're adding 2 expansion teams. Those teams are going to be bad. But now you've made it so teams with the worst record, they're more likely to pick 4th and 5th than pick 1st or 2nd, which means you're adding 2 expansion teams that have a shot that could be bad for 10, 15 years, which means you're adding 2 teams and you're going to immediately have fan bases that are destitute, that have no sense of hope, have no sense of like, hey, we could pull this together. Hey, we just hit the lottery right one year and we're good to go. Thank God. And I have to say this. I am so happy that the Wizards got the first pick. I am so happy that the Jazz got the second pick before this lottery reform nonsense. I mean, I think I saw Grant Williams, we could start taking picks away from teams if they're like, I'm not even sure how you quantify tanking necessarily. right? Well, they're holding guys. Sure, fine. But there does come a point where it's like, hey, this team's like just bad, right? This team's just kind of crap. And Adam Silver, I feel like just doesn't understand that. Like, I don't know. I feel like he's too concerned with pleasing. He'd rather please the Players Association. He'd rather please, you know, gambling companies. He'd rather please, ESPN. He'd rather please like Stephen A. Smith. And has Adam Silver ever said like a bad word about like a journalist or anything like that? Outside of like, like the Clay Travises of the world, those type of guys who, hate the NBA because, the best players in the league are predominantly black. Racists like that, like Outkick and Barstool. I'm sure he'll take a stand against those guys, but has he ever like run afoul of like Stephen A. Smith? I'm pretty sure like David Stern almost pretty much got Stephen A. Smith fired from ESPN at one point because he like annoyed him. That's the type of power that you can have as a commissioner, right? And yet, Stephen A. Smith will just openly, I feel like, almost interfere in teams' affairs with his comments and things like that. I don't view Stephen A. Smith as a journalist, as I more view him as like a horse's ass, as just kind of someone who shits out opinions and kind of wants and wishes, I feel, of ESPN, right? I feel like ESPN, and I'm going to get out of here. This is 21 minutes of me kind of ranting on the NBA. I feel like at times ESPN, tries weighting the scale a little bit on certain things. I feel like, I think you're seeing that with the Giannis stuff. I feel you're kind of starting to see them again. I mentioned this in that video I made a couple days ago where I feel like they're trying to talk down his trade value, which is very interesting, right? Giannis, he's this game-changing player, but also the Bucks really shouldn't expect much back in return. Just like, what? I'm sorry. I feel like the Bucks are trading Giannis. They should absolutely expect a king's ransom in return. But according to ESPN, like, Tyler Hero and some first round picks, that should be good enough to get him to Miami. They've been obsessed with getting him to Miami. You're seeing them trying to get him to Boston. And I feel like that's not how NBA media used to be. I don't know. I feel like they just kind of reported on stuff, but now it feels like ESPN kind of tries to weigh things that they want. And I feel like, again, I don't think David Stern would necessarily have allowed that. This is what I'm talking about with Adam Silver, where I feel like he's just kind of weak. I feel like, maybe it's just me, I feel like, David Stern would have probably made a call to ESPN, to Jimmy or James Pitaro, who runs CEO of ESPN, and kind of told him, hey, get your Muppets in line. Or he probably would have even made a call to Stephen A. Smith. And you know what I mean? It's like, I don't care what city you like going to so you can fly out escorts to cheat on your wife. Actually, that's probably what he would have said to LeBron, right? Because LeBron doesn't like going to Memphis. He doesn't like going to Milwaukee. NBA players do like traveling to Utah. Someone mentioned like, hey, how come NBA players never complain about going to Utah? They don't like sign their free agent big players, but like going there, they don't, players will play there. It's like, because Utah is pretty close to the West Coast, and that's where, a lot of players fly out their escorts and things like that. They fly them up to the West Coast. Utah, very close to Cali and Vegas and things like that. That's why NBA players are so excited about Vegas, because it's another good city you can fly out escorts to. You didn't hear that from me. So either way, I'm gonna get out of here. Adam Silver, certified dork, spends way too much time on social media. I've always felt he spent too much time on social media, but I appreciate this kind of confirming that he spends too much time on media. This quote right here, I love that he spends almost all of his free time reading NBA Twitter. Yeah, I almost talked for like 30 minutes, almost 25 minutes about Adam Silver, and I probably could go 25 more, honestly, but all of my issues with him. But yeah, what do you guys think? What are your guys' thoughts on Adam Silver? I'll leave a comment down below. You guys can tell me what you think on Adam Silver. Where do you rank him in terms of NBA commissioners? Personally, I have him ranked pretty low. I think he is one of the worst of the big American sports. I think he is really bad at his job. Your job is to grow the game. Your job is to uplift the markets regardless of where they are, regardless of what ESPN wants. I'm sure if ESPN had their way, the Super Bowl would be the Rams and the Giants, or Rams and the Jets, technically. Or, you know what I mean, every year. But you know what? That's not how the NFL works, right? Patrick Mahomes plays in Kansas City, Missouri. one of the biggest stars in the league, plays in Kansas City. Aaron Rodgers, one of the biggest stars in the league in the NFL for 20 plus years, played in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Tom Brady, biggest star in football, played in New England, not even Boston, right? Foxborough, one of the biggest stars, right? The NFL is the league where the market doesn't matter. I can't believe the NBA hasn't figured that out yet, but I get it. Some of the brands are so strong, like the Lakers and Knicks and things like that. But hey, the Knicks are great, and it doesn't feel like the NBA has like benefited from that. Anyway, I don't know. What do you guys think? Where do you guys rank Adam Silver? I could probably do multiple videos talking about Adam Silver and individual issues I have with him as commissioner, but this is the one I did. Let me know what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you listening to me ramble incoherently and rant about Adam Silver. Man, I will never meet in my life for 26 minutes. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.